welcome to the Dadhammer Podcast, where we discuss all things Warhammer. I am your host, David the Warboss, and I am joined by my friends, the Chaplain.
Blessings, everyone.
Yes, blessings. Medicae Steve.
Hey, gang. How you doing?
Good, good. And we have a mysterious new party crasher, a new guest on the podcast. And you're not a guest anymore. You're one of our friends, so it's kind of weird to call you a guest. Mr. Stu, the bearded ogre himself. Stu, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. This is fantastic to be here.
Yeah, so Stu has been kind of part of our crew on Dadhammer for a little while, essentially in the background, and he's been kind of our Age of Sigmar guy for a while. So most of us on the podcast are 40K fans, and we dabble in Age of Sigmar. We're all building our respective armies, and but Stu is the Age of Sigmar pro, and I think we're all kind of scared to play him. But Stu, if you don't mind, spend a couple of minutes here. How did you get started into kind of the current Warhammer scene? And I know you're big into the tournament stuff, so tell us a little bit about what's been going on in your world over the past few months.
Yeah, so let's see here. With Warhammer itself, like I've been in it since 3rd edition 40K. That's kind of where I got my foot. I got a free postcard in the mail to get a free mini for, I think it was a Space Marine Captain. Got the local mall around here called Opera Mills, and bring it in, got it for free, and that's how I got hooked. And I've been involved with it ever since in the backgrounds. Never really played too much, but hasn't been till like the last 5 or 6 years I've gotten pretty serious into playing, and more specifically with Age of Sigmar. Once it dropped, I was pretty hooked. When I was with the 40K stuff, it always intrigued me, but like the fantasy stuff. But it's both when AOS came out, I was kind of into it, and with that, the crew that I got involved with, they did a lot of like events and stuff, and so I wouldn't say that I'm a great tournament player, but I enjoy tournament play. So yeah. I'm more of a bottom tables kind of a guy. So that's kind of like where my my home is. So yeah, but yeah. I still enjoy it. I still go to a lot of them. I try my best to. But yeah, so.
Well, you're gonna fit right at home, because I don't think any of us have ever, at least I've never been to a tournament, but we're all bottom feeders here for our Warhammer games. So yeah, I just think we just haven't been to the tournament side, but very excited to bring you into the fold here, especially with your Age of Sigmar background. We've always been a little light on Sigmar. I've always been a fan of. I've got a Skaven army and then Stormcast army, and Lee, you're building up the Seraphon. Steve, you got your Slaves to Darkness. So and then of course Lee with the Sylvaneth coming in as well. So we've got a little bit going on. We just have been playing 40K primarily. So excited to bring you into the mix. So welcome, and for all of our listeners and viewers, you'll be seeing more of the bearded ogre himself on future shows. So with that, we're going to kick things off here. We've got a great show. We're going to talk a little bit about the latest Necron FAQs that this hit last week, I believe, and we're going to talk about the impact of those rules changes. So they dropped a very small one-page FAQ with some fairly impactful changes, and of course the week before LVO, the Las Vegas Open, and of course the internet was all ablaze after that came out. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but most importantly, what kind of impact those types of changes, those rules changes, have to both casual and tournament players. So we'll discuss that in depth, and then we'll also have a feature that we've done before called the auto include, reserve, or retire, and that's where we look at the latest models that have come out recently and determine whether or not each one of us would automatically include them in our armies, put them in reserve, or just kick it to the curb and retire it. So these are for the latest Age of Sigmar models that came out a few weeks ago, I believe, and they're part of the Siege of Terra. So they're the big boys. They're the Ionus, Cryptborn, Belthanos, and Troggoth. So we're going to go through that at the end of the show. Thank you so much for listening, watching, wherever you're consuming this content. I really appreciate it. If you like what you're hearing, make sure to rate, follow, subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube now. Make sure to hit that subscribe button for us. And you could also find us on our website, dadhammerstudios.com, where we're posting all kinds of cool stuff, including an article that Stu put up recently on getting into tournament play, which was really cool. So check that out. All right. So with that, let's get into it. We're going to hit first the latest Necron FAQ that just came out. So I'm going to throw this up on the screen here for those that are watching. And, this was I saw this after Steve, you had, and I told me about this came out. I didn't even know it was out, but of course the internet will tell you all kinds of stuff. So this just recently came out, and a summary of it is that they put out a very small rule change that had pretty big implications. I'm not a pro Necron player. Steve, I know that you play them a little more than I do. Of course, we've got some varying degrees of experience. Most of our Necron play has been on combat patrol. Yeah. But, they made a small change where essentially, and I'll summarize, there was a previous combo, a very tactical, strategic combo that a lot of competitive players used, and maybe some hardcore casuals, but where your immortals, one of the units in the Necron army, could, if stacked on these stratagems and extra abilities, could get up to 11 devastating wounds. And it was pretty devastating. So I think what Games Workshop has done with this is seen that people are taking advantage of a rule that wasn't necessarily intended to be used that way, and they have changed it like they do. They'll throw up an FAQ from time to time and modify the rules of the game. But what they've done with this one, I think, and why we're going to discuss it, is they made this change, just like a week before LVO. So if you're a Necron player going to this tournament, you got your forces all packed up in a suitcase of doom, whatever, to get them all the way over there, depending on where you're coming from, and you're really excited and you got your strategy, and then they drop this, which potentially changes your whole dynamic, how you enter into a tournament. I guess my first question that I'll throw out there, and Steve, since you're the one that posted this and told me about it initially, how do you think this is? We've seen what the internet has said. How do you think, if you're a tournament player walking into this, and Stu, I definitely want to get your perspective next. Steve, so how do you think this is being perceived, and how would you feel if you're a tournament player taking your Necrons to Las Vegas?
Man, I'd feel bad. It would be so rough. Here's the thing. So this Codex came out in November, I think. So we had talked about it on previous podcasts. Like, I was going to lean into my Necron army this year, just because I have all the models and it's just so much to do, and I just needed a refresher, right? So I was like, well, I've got an army, so why not build it and paint it? That's what you're supposed to do. So right. I started hearing about this detachment, this Canoptic Court detachment, just kind of in literature and just on the internet, and I was like, man, that sounds way too good to be true. So I started reading up on it, and then I got the Codex, and I was looking. I was like, well, it's there. I suppose it's for real, And I was like, man, I thought from day one, I was like, there's no way they're not going to change this, or something's not going to happen. However, if in November that you're going to go to LVO, which is this month, that's a pretty reasonable prep period, right? So you want to start your new army. Some of these folks, I think, they'll start at ground 0 to 2,000 points within 2 months. They'll pick the army they want to go with. They'll read their Codex and because they want to win, and I get it. So here you have a very winning army with a very winning strategy, and you go out and you buy all the boxes of immortals that you can get your hands on, oh, guess what? After Christmas, you can't find them anywhere, and
Oh, man.
eBay wants like $150. You know, people are selling them,
Yeah.
and you know, there's other units too, right? So, all right, but you got your stuff. You're like, hey, I thought ahead. I got all my stuff, and here you are. It's after Christmas. You've got your 2,000 point army built up for this one specific stratagem, because you know you're going to go out there and you're going to hopefully have an advantage. And then 2 weeks before or a week before, you just get completely dumpstered and nuked. And now what do? That I'm not gonna vilify GW on this one. Okay, they wrote the rules. It wasn't overly, you know, specified as to what the rules were, but this errata is almost literally a one word change.
So for those of you watching and saw a bit of a cut, apologies for that. Stu's shaking his head. We're in Nashville, and we've got 8 inches of snow, and it's 5 degrees outside. And you know, who knows what happened? Maybe a squirrel ran into the transformer around Stu's house, but power went out. But we're back. So small technical glitch, and you know, the good news.
One of my grots just ate through one of my, you know, electrical wires. That's what it was. One of those little grots. So
we'll go with that. We'll go with that. The good news is I got to cut Steve off early, which is always a win.
That guy talks too much.
I know. So, I mean, I'm the one that talks the most, I think, but nobody can cut me off. I got the pause button. So let's move over then. Actually, Stu, welcome back. I did want to kick it over to you, talking about this tournament impact, and especially with the Codex release, you know, a couple of months ago. Now they've got the FAQ already out. So what we were picking back up on is, how have you ever experienced this, especially on the Age of Sigmar side and being a tournament player? Have you ever experienced getting all of your forces ready to go, and then all of a sudden, you know, ready to enter a tournament, and then they drop a big rules change? Have you experienced that, or seen someone else have to go through that in tournament play?
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly the rules for like 40K tournaments, since I've never been in one. But I'm pretty sure it's pretty close to the same of what, you know, they do in AOS. And usually if something like that happens, like, it's up to the TO, the tournament organizer, to decide whether or not they want to like put those rules in or leave them out, because it's so close to the actual day of the tournament, you know. So it's because it's really hard for people to, like, you know, switch up their list or like learn the rules or whatever. So it really kind of depends on the TO of what they usually do. And most of the time, if it's like within like a week out like that, like usually it's not getting added. Like it's, you know, unless it's like, you know, breaking or whatever like that, you know, they might, I don't know, but usually bottom line, it's just that it's down to the TO, whoever decides that. But for myself, I mean, I've never experienced that. I mean, like I said in my intro, like, I play at the bottom table, so it doesn't really matter if I'm following really the rules too much, you know, because I'm not winning games. So, but yeah, I mean, it sucks. I definitely say that, you know, because I mean, especially if you're allowed to not use them, because it's like, you know that these rules are there and you can't use them, and you know that, well, hey, if I had these rules, I possibly could have won that game, you know, or whatever. Like, that could be, you know, kind of frustrating. But yeah.
I could see that. You know, I think it's frustrating for a lot of people. And Lee, I was going to get your take as well. Being, I know you and I, none of us really, other than Stu, have been to tournaments. But I'm curious, as I guess you're the newest player among us, even though we're at some point we're going to have to stop saying that you're a new player, because you've been playing for a while. But I mean, you know, what are your thoughts on this? Like, how do you feel about, especially with you buying, you know, several armies and look, especially new ones, right? Getting Seraphon, Sylvaneth. Are you having a case of the feels bad, right? Where you've just bought all the books and everything, and now all of a sudden it's completely changed how you approach a game?
Yeah, I mean, I remember back when I first started at Space Marines, and I think it was Auspex Tactics brought out like interceptors were the new thing in order to, you know, take down. So, you know, take about their auto include go for it. And I had a box, and I remember I took forever to paint them. And I was playing against New David, and it was Votann versus Space Marines, and these things were on the board for like 20 seconds. I brought them in, and Dave was just like, "Oh, nice bottles," and then just lit them up with his Votann from everywhere.
And that was 9th edition. That was 9th edition Votann.
Oh, was it? Yeah. And I remember just the feeling of, but I just painted these, like, and just brought them off the board. But I remember that they were strong, and everyone was trying to buy them, and there was this, like, no one could get hold of them. You know, I was trying to buy more, and I think that's the thing. I think there are times where you hear of stronger units, so everyone goes out and buys them, and then suddenly there's a change. And with those interceptors, they brought them out, and then they changed the rules, and suddenly it was like, oh man, like, in a way, I dodged that by not being able to buy them. Otherwise, I'd have bought quite a few. I think as a new player, like Warhammer is expensive, and I think with 10th edition, what I've experienced is like, hey, buy this book, buy these models. Hey, you need these data cards, and then 4 weeks later, those data cards are no good anymore, or this information is incorrect. And it's those things that kind of like, I'm like, oh man, like, you get caught up in the wave of excitement. Buy this, get this, you need this. And then suddenly they change it. And now I'm left with cards that I'll never use. I wish they had something in place which was like, hey, yeah, you've gone ahead and spent $30-40 on these cards. We know we've changed them. Okay, send us send the receipt or the code on the back, and we'll offer you a discount. I don't think it'll ever happen.
No,
but that's just part of me, like, please,
right. I mean, that would be great, like, to give you like a some kind of incentive. And I mean, I'll throw this up on the screen too, because this is what a lot of people look at. They look at a Codex, and then those cards that they came out with. Everyone was so excited about those cards when they came out with those. I know I was excited, because when they originally released the index, when that was at the very beginning of 10th edition, like, hey, we're going to make all the rules free, and here's the index, and here's all the data sheets. Oh man, I was so excited, and I was going to buy the cards, and they were cheap, and it was great, because I was also thinking that they weren't actually going to come out with the Codex. Like, I thought they were going to, instead of maybe a big rules Codex like you've had in all the previous editions, maybe they're going to make all the data sheets free and come out with the cards. Great. They're going to make them simple, even better. And then the book that they come out with is maybe just going to be some flavor text, some cool artwork, some lore, backstory. I always talk about a cool map that they could put in there. I don't know, something that would just give you an extra flavor for your army, versus now when they release this Codex, literally within a month or less. I mean, and back in 9th edition with Votann, famously they came out with the video from James Workshop talking about how they made a huge mistake. And it's like, I think as a casual player and not a competitive player, and Stu, even with you being a competitive player, I guess competitive casual is maybe a better term for where you self-proclaimed competitive casual. But I mean, I don't get hung up as much on this kind of stuff, because we are so casual with our games. If somebody shows up and says, hey, there's a new FAQ, I get to do this or I don't get to do that, it's not as big of a deal. I think where it becomes, for me personally, a little bit of a burn is when I purchased the book. I purchased a product, or these cards, and then they're within a month just, okay, well, I guess I can't use these anymore. So, Steve, did you buy the Necron cards? Did you buy all that, or did you just go with the Codex?
No, I learned from Lee. So I said, no, I'm not going to buy any cards at all. I felt so bad for you, dude. I was like, oh man, I don't even think you had them a week. And that started happening. And I thought, well, I remember us talking about it when we're hyping up for 10th edition. And that was our thing. It was like, oh, these index cards are going to be great. And man, it didn't even get off the ground, and it got the engine shot off the bird, And So I was like, no, I'm not going to buy those because I already pay for the app and all that stuff, and that stuff gets updated pretty quick in the app. So bravo to them for getting with the digital age. I think
ish.
Yeah, all
I
right,
mean,
yeah, ish.
they kind of did. It's
Digital adjacent.
Right. I still got a whole load of books, and
Yeah.
I think that's my problem. I was really leading up to 10th edition, and Steve and I, I talked about this, where I was really hoping that they were going to at least give you the option. You can go full
Right.
digital if you want, or you can go full physical. I think that would have appeased both sides, but they didn't really do either one. It's like, okay, well, you have to have both now almost, because if you're going to buy the book, you're going to buy the Codex. It gives you the app, which is, that's going to be updated. So all these FAQ things, so they're going to be built into the app. So, conspiracy theory, are they just trying to steer you towards Warhammer Plus subscription to use the app? And I wouldn't mind that if they went all in on it and the digital side was just immaculate and just so superior to the physical version. But I mean, after buying the book, do you just throw that thing in the trash now?
I don't
or
think
do you
so.
keep it around?
Oh, because what I hear you saying is you're okay with when I drop my 10 immortals on the board and get to do my 11 devastating wounds. No, so in all fairness, I had all these models way before I've had these models since before 10th edition came out. So, and this is why we tell you, kids, don't chase the meta, right? Because it's going to change, it's going to swap, it's going to be different than it was yesterday. However, if you're somebody new, like we were talking about before, it hurts, it burns you pretty hard. You're hyped, you're excited, like, man, this is going to be my second army. This is the army I want to go with. I read through the Codex, I got into the hype about it, and this is how I'm going to go about doing it. But I have a budget. My budget states this is what I can do with my budget. So, all right, well, this detachment looks good, so I'm going to dump my budget into a bunch of immortals. And then, it's like, wah, 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 wah. No, you are not. We're going to just yank that out from Monday, and the glasses are still on the table.
You can still use them, right? They're still
absolutely
viable. There's just, they don't have the combo, it's a combo breaker, it's like they had this great stacking combo where you could do all kinds of stuff and then dump 11 devastating wounds. To me, it feels very similar to what I went through with Votann in 9th edition, where you could just stack all the judgment stuff, the judgment tokens, and then auto.
No, you can't.
Lee's got PTSD, I think, from me going through that. But and then auto sixes, and then ignoring invulnerable saves, ignoring everything. You just die. Like, that was basically how Votann felt in 9th edition for the first couple of weeks.
It was when you would slap on the judgment tokens, I would move my models away, and then you'd go, "Excuse me, sir, have you forgot your luggage?" And then like a trail of tokens all the way back. I was like, "Oh man!" And then you'd go and roll, and then you would announce, "Now I get to re-roll because the Greater Arthurian League or something or other." And I was just like, man. And every time I was like, "Really? Another re-roll? Another thing?" I was just like, "Do you want to just?" Should we just declare you the winner at the first roll?
Do you want to roll my dice for me?
I mean, it did kind of feel like that. And even though I was playing Votann, and I was so excited for Votann, and as soon as I started playing, I'm like, and I was used to playing Orcs. So Orcs are not powerful shooting at all. Zero, right? It's so random. Your stuff blows up half the time without even attacking anyone, it seems like. And so I was so excited to play an army with actual shooting capabilities. And so I didn't really notice for the first couple of games. And then after a while, I'm like, man, these guys are kind of, it's not really that competitive, for me, because it's just re-roll everything and I'll auto 6 everything. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't great. But
I tell you what, though, that one, I can't remember if it was 9th or 10th edition, but I'd come out with the Space Marines. I'd had this tactic, and then obviously, Votann, they don't move fast, and then it was like the final parts of the game, and I could see it happening, and I was, when you get like that internal kind of like excited, but you're trying to keep it all together. So like internally, I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna win. But on the outside, I'm like, don't give it away. He can read your
Poker face.
he can read your emotions. And then
Yeah.
I think it was you had to make a move that involved movement to be able to get the points. And then I did shackles. There was a shackle thing or whatever, and it worked. And you couldn't make the move, and then it was that, and then I think one of my models did Deadly Demise and completely blew up. That's the only time that you want a model to die is when you're like everyone's cheering 6, come on, and it happens.
Yeah.
But so I did, in my opinion, defeat the strongest army I've ever faced in Ninth.
Okay.
Not to rub it in.
Yeah, let's not speak of this ever again. I think that's the moral of this story. No, but I think one of the questions that I wanted to pose, and Stu, I'll go to you next here, is that with these kinds of changes, with the potential, the FAQs, the updated rules and such, is that affecting you as a tournament player? Going to tournaments, is that causing you some extra frustration, or when you're playing casually, is there a difference? Do you just kind of roll with it? I know you said that you're we've now called you a casual competitive player, but is there a difference between the two, or do you just take this and just roll with it and say, yeah, I'm just having a good time rolling some dice?
Well, yeah, I think it's kind of up to the general, who's playing the army. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, my whole thing is play what you want to play. If you want to play, and this is mainly for like casual, like if you're going into a tournament scene, you need to be up to date on all the rules that's been put into the pack that they give you for you to follow. But I mean, if you're just playing with your buddies and you want to play with Necron rules back in 7th edition or whatever, like you do you, man. Like that's the whole thing, is that like with a casual setting, it's a social agreement between the two players. Like if I'm okay with you playing outdated rules, and as long as you're okay with me playing with updated rules, I mean, we're gonna have fun. Like that's the key thing is to have fun. So if you're having fun playing, 6th, 7th, 8th, 1st edition rules, play it. But as long as you're okay with me playing, up-to-date rules or, whatever rules I want to play, I mean, that's how it is. Like the key thing is to have fun, especially in a casual setting. Now, like I said, in tournament play, like, yes, up-to-date rules, everything's got to be pretty much rigid in a box, like, but also too, I mean, the scene there is usually pretty cool. Like your opponent's most likely going to be pretty cool. I mean, as long as you get it, you talk to the TO and like, hey, like, are you okay if I play these rules? And the TO agrees with it, then it's law. Like you've got backup from the TO saying, hey, yeah, I can play with these rules. I've got proof, or whatever. And then if your opponent has beef with it, that's on them. They can go cry to the TO about it, and the TO will take care of it. So
yeah, I like this. So it sounds like what you're saying is that I have permission to play with 9th edition Votann rules whenever I play against you guys. I like this. Stu, thank you so much for joining the show.
Yeah, go for it, man.
This clarity.
I mean, it's not going to matter anyway, because that'll only be the second 40K game I've ever played in the past 15 years. So.
Let me have my moment of glory. Actually, Votann are now back in the spotlight where they used to be. But Lee, going back to, did want to make a comment about the movement. I just remember thinking to myself, trying to keep it composed, internally, thinking, I just wish their legs were a little longer to move a little faster. But it is what it is. So, I mean, I think then maybe the next question is, if thinking about going to just to play any type of game, whether it's casual or tournament play, and I've specifically purchased a unit, right, that I want for, and Steve, you were alluding to it a minute ago. I've specifically purchased a box of models to take advantage of a certain combo, and then they get nerfed. Because I'm not necessarily chasing the meta; I just want to include them in my army. Is that something that is that Games Workshop's fault, or is it just kind of part of the game and part of being a consumer and just dealing with it and buyer's remorse or whatever? Or do you just roll with it?
I think you roll with it because no matter what, all right, say like go back to this Necron example we're talking about, man, it all hinges on it. It's not a sure thing. You still have to roll the dice and get and make it happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if for me, I go with the attitude like, well, today they're great, tomorrow they stink, but they're still cool models, and I liked them, and I bought them for that reason anyway.
Yeah,
I think we're all on the same page in that we buy what we think is cool, what we like, if they're great, and we might have an outlier here and there, like, man, I want to try this. I want to beat my friends up and make them feel bad. So I'm gonna
spirit.
I'm gonna go get this one thing and see if I can make it work. Because if you're like me, you're gonna roll all ones anyway, so it doesn't matter what it does. I think you can't fret about it.
Yeah,
And I think when we play with our friends and everything else, it's cool. It's never an issue anyway. Even if you're not doing tournaments, I think for us the biggest thing that it could impact is when we step outside of our normal group and we go play at Blackthorn or we go play at Mechanical Keys and we don't know our opponents as well, and maybe they're using these casual games as tournament prep, right? So, maybe they really want to stick to the new FAQ, or maybe they want to like really be sticklers for the rules because this is just repetition and practice for them. And I think you have to respect that to some degree, especially as a casual player. I'm not getting paid for it. I'm just painting cool models and watching them disappear on the board because that's what I do.
We need to work that out though. We need to figure out how to get paid to play Warhammer casually. I think that's a great idea.
That's a good
Show
idea.
up at my house and I get paid for it. That's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, the tournament scene, and I'll throw this up here. Just the Las Vegas Open is coming up, and for those that are unaware of what the LVO is, Las Vegas Open, it's not just Warhammer. It's a bunch of other games. It's a big event. But I threw up a picture of, number one, Stephen Box from Vanguard Tactics is there. I thought that was cool. They had that on the site. And then they've got all these other tables. There's just the amount of games being played in one space. Number one, I hope the air conditioning is working because that's going to be brutal.
Won't need it right now.
Nope. Yep. So
it doesn't even matter. Even if the air conditioning is working, that place is going to smell like your 3-day-old trash. Okay, like it doesn't. It just Trust me, I've been in many air-conditioned rooms. I've been in non-air-conditioned rooms. It does not matter. That smell is like Nurgle's plague, and it will always linger.
So everybody, get hyped about going to LVO. You just wear one of those like really fancy masks that they have now with like I don't think those like reduce the smell. I don't know if that happens, but you won't get COVID. I guess that's maybe.
I've literally gone to tournaments where like the TO literally walks down the aisle with Febreze in between games just to make sure that guests that come in don't feel scared. So
scared. Yeah, you don't want to scare people away, boy. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you've ever been to a Warhammer store when the door is closed, you know what we're talking about. So it is just kind of something that has to happen for a lot of people that are ultra competitive. But at the same time, from a casual standpoint, Lee, I'll go to you. Like sometimes you've come over to my house to play a game, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Hey, I got a new abilities," and you're the one printing out the rules. Sometimes, like in past editions, I was just saying whatever's in the book is what I'm playing. That kind of stew to what you're saying. But as a casual player, Lee, do you feel that, do you feel this kind of urgency or requirement to keep up with all this and print out, and you come in with a 3-ring notebook, a binder full of PDFs that you've had to print out over time?
I mean, I think it's how you're wired. I'm a rule follower, so I try not to deviate. Like, if these are the rules, I'm like, these are the rules. This is how you play. So I'm always trying to keep up to date. So that's just me. I think it's when 10th came out and the new rules came out, I was trying to understand that and, okay, how does this work, and sticky objectives and things like that. And what I was finding was the rules were actually helping me in the game. You know, I was like, oh, okay, I can move on, claim it, and then keep rolling. So for me, as just someone who's just wired that way as a rule follower, you know, I'm going to be downloading them and studying them and working out what's going to give me the best advantage in a game. So yeah.
Okay. Stu, do you have the same experience with Age of Sigmar? Are you constantly, downloading the FAQs and keeping things up to date, printing out PDFs and have a big stack of paper rolling into every single game, or do you just kind of play casually with whatever's in the book?
Nah, I don't do that. I mean, I read them, yes, but like the reason why I'm at bottom tables is because I don't remember my rules. So why would I print out more rules? That's just no. That's just
fair.
I mean, I try my best, but it usually never works out. But kind of piggyback off of Steve and him talk about, going into like a local game store and playing a game. Like, if you are that person that wants to play, like I said earlier, like, past edition rules, I feel like if you're walking into a game store, you've got to have a plan B. Because, like Steve said, like there might be someone that is wanting to, get the best number one, or whatever. So like it's always good to like have a backup plan. I agree with going into a local game store because I mean you never really know who you're going to run into. Like I mean
I think too. I wish Games Workshop would lean a little heavier into the app, and I may be, vilified for that because it's like everybody wants to go with the books, and how dare that they charge for a service in Warhammer Plus. And I get it. I understand all of that. I understand the concerns and the complaints about that. However, as also a Dungeons and Dragons player, D&D Beyond is one of the best things that they've ever made, in my opinion. It's free. You don't need a subscription for it, unless you want to unlock the extra classes and abilities and books and all that kind of stuff. But they made it so convenient to do so that if you create a character and you want a special class, you buy the book for it, and then you can just immediately essentially upgrade your character, build it all into the character sheet. So they made it almost an incentive, right? You can pay for it, but it's still an incentive. I wish they would do that a little more to incentivize me to go digital, because to me that's cheaper. For Games Workshop still gets my money with the subscription, and I'll pay for a digital copy, honestly. I don't think I'd want to pay the full $60, but it depends on how they figure out the value. But they could charge like $40 for a digital copy that doesn't cost them necessarily any more to produce, but I'm getting the value out of that, and it would update. I just think that would be a win-win for everybody. But just my opinion. I think it's a bit of a pipe dream to have them going to go hard into digital. Maybe 11th edition. That's what we say every single time.
They used to sell digital codexes and battle tones. Sure. Like and they were always. And the weird thing too is that like if you bought it, at least for AOS, I'm not sure if it was for the 40K, but like if you bought it through the AOS app, it was even cheaper than what was on the Warhammer website. Like I don't know how that worked. Like it was always like an extra $10 cheaper, like than what was on the site. Even though, I don't know how it worked. But
I wish they would do that. I mean, I honestly, and but I think we're not in charge of how they do it, and we're going to buy the books anyway. I mean, I'm a sucker, so I'm just going to go buy all the stuff, whatever they release, I'm buying. So, yeah. All right. Well, I think that LVO is going to be interesting for sure. That's coming up. So if you're not aware already, we've got a live stream, and on the 18th, so that's this Thursday, we're very, very excited to look through all of the new releases. Stu's doing his little, I guess that's your new Warhammer dance. But we've got a live stream. They're going to be talking about all the new releases, reveals. They're doing 40K, Sigmar, Warcry, all kinds of stuff. The one thing that they are not talking about supposedly is the old world. So if you're hoping for that, of course they could just drop a little bit of knowledge on everybody, surprise. But I think the majority of it is going to be the current games, not including old world. But we will be doing a live stream, 11 p.m. Central for us. So I'm going to take my double shot of espresso around maybe about 9 o'clock, 9:30.
I'm going to be uber hyped. That's like I'm going to be like my daughter. Like once she's so tired, she just gets super excited, and that's exactly what's happening to me.
So please join us. We're going to be on YouTube and Twitch, and also Kick. I'm trying that out as well. So we're going to be everywhere. Please, join us and throw in your comments and have a party along with us. I mean, it's a nerd party. It's a nerd Warhammer party, but that's how we roll here. So
a smell-free nerd party.
Yes, agreed. And hopefully the power will stay on while we're having our party.
Oh yeah, please.
Yeah. So all right. So with that, let's move on to our final segment of the show, and we're gonna have a little bit of fun here. We're gonna talk about we've done this before, the auto include, reserve, and retire. So if you are just joining us for the first time, whenever they do some kind of big release, new models, we have an opinion on whether or not we really like them. Everything is subjective, of course, until they get to me, and then I'm the one that makes the final decision. Is that how that works? No?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, right. So we'll go around and we're going to talk about 3 different models: the Troggoth, Belthanos, and then the Ionus Cryptborn. I can't spell. But I'm going to throw these up on the screen. And Lee, I'm going to start with you first. We're going to go with Belthanos here. This is a Sylvaneth model riding a fiery beetle bug-looking thing, and there's a horn, there's a trumpet going on, and a kind of a leafy cape. So is this an auto include, meaning absolute would be in my army, reserve kind of maybe, and then a retire is no way? Where are you landing on this one?
Okay, well, I mean, it's pretty obvious. I have a Sylvaneth army, so it is a auto include. So much so that I have pre-ordered it from Blackthorn, because I was like, I don't want to wait for this to be sold on eBay for crazy amounts of money. So I was like, I'm gonna get this one. So again, it's Operation Sneak into the House and add it to the no. I'm gonna let the good wife let her know that, hey, I had to get it. That is an auto include.
All right. So Steve, where do you land on this, on the giant bug with trumpet?
I had to go retire. So sorry, Lee. It's a cool model. That's either a really big bug or a really small tree. I'm not sure, but no. I had to say,
like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids going on here.
Hey, that's great.
Yeah,
absolutely right, man.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that. That's funny.
That's what I'm here for. It's the 80s jokes. That's what I'm here for.
You can mock it all you like. You can mock it all you like, but when that rolls onto the battlefield and retires your Slaves to Darkness army, then we'll be laughing.
Well, yes. I'm sure that thing is fighting the good fight as opposed to my guys.
Mm-hmm.
But no,
so you're going to retire, huh?
I'm going to retire.
Okay. Well, I will say that this is also a retire for me. And for different reasons. I don't have a problem with the model, but as someone who loves to play like dwarfs, I guess we talked about this previously. If it's Tolkien, it's dwarves with a V, with a VES. If it's everything else, it's dwarfs with an FS. So because this gives me elf vibes, I'm going to say retire. So, it's not a bad model at all. I just, if you're going to pick one, this is the one that I would probably put at the bottom of the pile. So That's just me. All right, now let's move on then to the next one, which is the Troggoth model. Lee, I'll start with you again. This thing is pretty hideous. It looked like it was almost born at the bottom of a tree, and kind of emerged underneath the mud and the roots, and it's still got all that stuff attached to it. So where do you land on this one? Auto include? Well, I guess you've already done your auto include, so this is either going to be a reserve or retire. Where are you on this one?
I mean, it's a great model, great sculpt. I think you mentioned in previous episodes, like it's just come out of the ground and it's got like a shrine on top of it. So I think they've done really good work, but one of them has to fall into this pot, and it's going to go into the retire. It's just, yeah, it's great, but it's not something that I would I'm going to be ever using. So it's going to get retired.
Okay, all right. Well, agree to disagree. Steve, where do you land on this one?
I put it in my reserve list. Though I'm not gonna lie, it was a really close call for me, and it's only because I guess in maybe our previous podcast or another conversation we started joking and talking about the Gloomspite, and I was like, I should look those guys up. I'm not gonna lie, there's something kind of funny and cool.
Oh,
it's not this year. I don't know.
Yeah, you say that when Spearhead comes out, and they're going to come out with a box, and you're going to be like, ooh.
It has a Jim Henson feel, like all those movies, like Labyrinth, and I don't know. It's just,
Labyrinth is 100% right. I bet David Bowie's in there somewhere.
It's got to be. I'm sure you find his head hiding on that little shrine. So it brings back.
That's a kit bash. That's a kit bash waiting to happen.
I don't know. It brings back good vibes to me.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm going to say that this is my reserve. I don't mind this model. I go. It almost makes me, because of orcs and I've thought about ogres as well. This gives me that kind of vibe, and it just looks very, very powerful. It looks incredibly slow, and dumb. Maybe it just looks like it's not going to be very quick. It's just going to take giant mallet and smash things. That's its job. So I think this is definitely for me a reserve. I'll go to Stu for to this. Will include a reserve or retire for you?
I'd say reserve. I go reserve.
Yeah. Middle of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
I just think because out of the other three,
Have you ever played the Gloomspite Gets? Have you played against those?
Oh yeah, the Troggs are tough. They're very tough. I mean, they're able to like re-heal themselves. They've got I think 4 wounds. Their damage output's pretty good. I think they got rend 1 or 2, and then they've got a damage 2 or 3 or something like that. So they're pretty tough to deal with. But yeah,
this looked like it's going to hit like a Mack truck. I mean, that's this thing. It's got to be pretty terrible to fight.
Oh yeah, it's definitely pretty tough. And I think also it's counted as either like a priest or a wizard. So you've got that bonus as well. So it can either block priests incantations or magic spells or stuff. And I think it might be able to cast one of those two as well. Again, like I said before, I don't really read rules too much. So yeah, but on the rule of cool, it's definitely cool to me. I love the horns that are coming out of it because it definitely sets it apart from the rest of the Trogg range. And yeah, it's just, and all the inscriptions on the stomach and the arm and stuff. It's just really cool. So
yeah, agreed. All right. Well, let's now move then to the very last one, which is the Ionus Cryptthorn. I keep wanting to say Cryptborn, whatever. This is a cool looking model, and this is part of the Stormcast. So it's basically a red dragon with almost like a Chaplain looking figure on top. If you're thinking 40K. So Lee, I'll start with you. Is this your reserve?
Yeah, it's my reserve. I mean, I think Steve already mentioned this in previous episodes, just like, how can we get this in 40k? Like, is there some way that we can, give the dragon lasers and just let it roll into battle? Because I'm like, this is just for me. Yes, it's a reserve, but I think this for me is a model that it's like one of those models that you buy just because you want to paint it. That's it. You'll never play, but you'll invest time in, making it look. Maybe this is a competition piece. It's one of those pieces that you can really take some time over. So it falls in reserve. If I was playing, is it Stormcast army? Then that would be an auto include straight away.
Yep.
Yeah.
So good. So good.
Yeah, I agree. This was one of the, I think, front runners for model of the year, if I remember correctly. And, it was narrowly beat out. But Steve, where do you land on this guy? Is this an auto include?
Yeah, I put it as auto include, definitely, because I kind of called it as the model of the year earlier in one of our episodes. But man, it's just got so much going on. But gosh, it's good. It's a good looking model. I think it's sinister for the good guys. Good guys. There's just there's a neat, I don't know, just sort of malevolent almost look to it, though it's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It doesn't look the order. It doesn't look order. It looks more like destruction, I would say. It doesn't look like it's going to be your friend at all.
Does not care about your feelings.
No, zero cares. Stu, what about you? Is this auto include or retire?
100% auto include. Like, just the fact too that it's a glow up of a previous model is fantastic. And like I said, the dragons right now, or the drakes, I guess that's what they call them in the lore.
Drake.
They're all the rage right now, model wise, and this looks fantastic, especially with it hunched over and whatnot. And definitely a centerpiece model for sure. The only downside I feel like for myself is that it's not as big as it looks. Like it's a decent sized model, but it's not Star Drake size. Like it's not,
okay.
Which is kind of interesting because the images that you see from it make it look like it's probably Star Drake size, but it's not really. It's
more Storm Drake, would you say? Like the smaller Drake?
No, it's like in between. It's like in between those kind of but yeah, it's a beautiful model, fantastic. 100% auto include all day, every day, only the faithful. So
yeah, I'm so as a Stormcast player. What's funny is that I got a call from Mechanical Keyboards recently, asking, they sent me a picture of this, and Justin there was sending me a picture, and he's like, "Hey, you have any interest?" And I said, "Interest, yes, 100% interest." However, I've got, this is just after Christmas, and I've got 5 boxes of still in the shrink wrap Age of Sigmar Stormcast Eternals models, and so I can't can't go. I would get lots of side eye looks from my wife if I walked in with yet another. What was that? So
I don't know.
The good news, yeah, right. I don't know, just showed up.
So look, I followed me home.
So this is definitely an auto include for me, and if I didn't already have, I'm painting a Star Drake right now, and I've got many other Stormcast models to paint. I'm going. I like the dragons quite a bit, and painting the wings. I'm looking at this model right now and seeing the dark red and the light red. Like, boy, that just looks like a dry brush. That's easy. I could do that because I'm painting the Star Drake right now, and for whatever reason, I chose to go into the little, I'm going to call them membranes, so like the tendrils in the wings themselves, and paint them individually. I don't know why. I decided to punish myself. So I'm painting those, and I'm thinking, I don't know if I like dragons anymore. But it's going to look cool when I'm done. And this one looks like a straight up dry brush. So pretty excited. I will eventually pick this one up. This is not just an auto include in name, as long as they don't retire it. No pun intended. But Games Workshop likes to do that. They just stick something on the shelf and you never see it again. So definitely an auto include for me. Yeah, I mean, I would say then, just to kind of sum up the segment here, I would say that all three of these models really is they all look good. You know, we're kind of joking about the Belthanos and the Sylvaneth model, but I think they all look great. Games Workshop, to me, has really put a lot of work into Age of Sigmar. Whoever is designing the models for Age of Sigmar, like, I wish they would do some of that with 40K, because not that the 40K models look bad. I just always think that the Age of Sigmar models are a little more fantastical, I guess. They just are more dynamic. Their poses are a little more threatening, I guess. I don't know. Lee, where do you land on just kind of the difference between Age of Sigmar and 40K? You know, now that you're getting into some armies with Age of Sigmar and you've already got some with 40K, now after looking at these three that we just talked about, are you looking at Age of Sigmar and saying, oh man, I'd rather go over there versus the 40K, or where are you? Or you just both look cool?
I think both look cool. I have to admit though, I think the sculpts for Sigmar have, like, there's just so much detail on them. Like right now I'm painting Croxigors and I'm having a blast just looking at all the detail, and especially how contrast paints, I tried to avoid them, and then it was just like you're making the job harder for yourself, especially with all the scales. So put on a contrast paint, it looks so good. So I think the sculpts are more different, but I think you got to think of the setting. The setting is fantasy, so you know, armor is not made by a machine, and it's not perfectly like rounded and shiny like it is with a Space Marine. You've got, you know, metal kind of bashed together and different things. So, you know, yes, Sigmar, the sculpts are amazing, and they definitely continue to push them further. But I think there's only so much you can do with a Space Marine. Now, if you look at other 40K models, who's the one that looks like the animal from Muppets with wings? What's his name? We've got blank.
I know who you're talking about. The Angron? Yeah. Do you think
Angron? Yeah. You see that Angron mad. Oh. But you can see there they've pushed the sculpt out and really gone for it. So I think it just depends. I think if you're comparing Sigmar with Space Marines, it's always going to be sure. But if you compare, you know, Sigmar with Angron, you can see that there is that, you know, where the sculptors are pushing it out. So but right now
I would agree with that. I think too that one of the big differences that I've seen with Age of Sigmar models is that they seem to be perched on something. There's always a little bit of scenery, you know, scenery for Age of Sigmar terrain and 40K for whatever reason, but they always have something else on the base. It's not just the model, whereas 40K tends to be
old tactical rock.
Right. There's lots of tactical trees or tactical pillars. And I've just seen a lot of those, and they just seem bigger and more part of the environment. So that'd be the only thing I wish that 40K would have a little more of. Maybe throw in a destroyed tactical pillar, or not just a tactical rock, you know, somewhere where they're perched on it. Because it seems like with 40K, they use terrain and little bits like that just for an excuse to perch them up a little higher, versus what Age of Sigmar does is make it part of the model. So that'd be my only comment on that. But either way, I think these are cool models. I love both. I think Warhammer's in a good place right now, both Age of Sigmar and 40K, leading up to the Las Vegas Open coming up on Thursday. I'll do one more plug for our live show. Please join us. We would love for you to join us on the live show. Stu's doing his dance again. We're going to have live reactions, and we're going to see all the good stuff. We're going to have it in this format. We'll be pulling up the stream so you can watch us react and watch with us and throw in your comments. We'd love to have you. So please do so. But that will actually wrap our show for this episode of the Dadhammer Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, gents, for all of your commentary. Stu, the bearded ogre, thanks for joining us. I'm glad that your power issues and the squirrel and the grots have figured out their problems. Hopefully they won't be back in the future, but rest assured we will be. I am David the Warboss, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.
See you soon.